Alright guys, welcome to part 2 of the LittleBigPlanet 2 Beta Create Mode walkthrough. In this part we'll be covering rotators as well as some of the new sensors that you can use in LittleBigPlanet 2. Now, first we're going to start with the rotators. This here is a basic rotator and it's hooked up to a piece of cardboard that's screwed into a piece of light matter with a normal bolt. And you can set the strengthen the bolt like that. Bolts haven't changed at all in LittleBigPlanet 2, but this is a new item. This allows you to rotate anything that's attached to a normal type of bolt. You can set the speed at which it rotates when it's activated, as well as the acceleration and deceleration, how fast it approaches that speed, and how fast it loses energy when the switch is turned off. You can set it to input action on-off, strength scale, and speed scale, as well as it can be visible in play mode. You can choose whether it's visible in play mode or not. So when I switch this on, it's going to rotate in a clockwise direction. You can set this speed here to a negative value, and it will rotate in a counterclockwise direction, like this. Yes, that's how the basic mover or basic rotator works. This is a gyroscope. Now, a gyroscope will attempt to keep whatever it is attached to, and in this case it's attached to a piece of cardboard that's attached to another piece of cardboard that's on a wobble bolt, and it works like this. It'll keep whatever it's attached to pointing in the direction that the gyroscope assigned it to point in. That arrow that's on the gyroscope there will always try and point up. So if I were to rotate that a little bit, it would point in a different direction. As you can see there, that arrow will always try and point up. That's the best way to explain it, just to show you how it works. You can set the speed at which it tries to point in its given direction, as well as the acceleration, how fast it will reach that destination, and the inputs as per usual, and the visible in play mode option is also there as well. This over here is a follower, and this one over here will follow your Sackboy as it moves around. It will follow any Sackboy it sees on the screen. I don't know if priority is given to the first player, if there's multiple players in the region, which one it will follow. But yes, it will follow Sack people that are in its range, which you can designate here. You can also have its minimum range, so it won't detect Sack people inside the little circle, but it will detect Sack people between the little circle and the big circle, as well as the trigger range. It's sort of just like keys or tags in range detection. You can also change the speed at which it will follow your sack person, and how fast it will reach its destination, as well as the usual input types. You can also set it to follow tags if you want to follow tags, and you can set that there, what color it is and what label the tag is, as you wish. And here's how it works in action. As you can see, as that moves, it points at me. If I move over here, it points over there. Move over here, it points over there. If I move completely out of range, it just drops. So that's how the follower works. This is a rocket rotator. Now this is a little bit haphazardous, and it's really sort of weird in its function, but I'll try and show you how it works. What it will try to do is it will try and point in the direction it's going. As you can see, it doesn't really work that well. It goes a bit crazy, and it doesn't really work very well. But it will try and face the direction in which it is going. It'll try and rotate whatever it's attached to face the direction in which it is traveling. So yeah, that's essentially what it will do. The minimum speed, that's how fast it will rotate to face where it's going, or how much power it has in its rotation. Acceleration, how fast it will rotate to that destination, and your usual input types. A bit haphazardous, a bit weird how it works, but yeah, that's essentially what it does. This over here is the advanced mover. Now this, you can set to move in multiple directions. So you can sort of, it's pressure sensitive too, you can sort of move it like that, move it a little bit, or you can move it all the way. Yes, it's more complicated than the basic rotator. You can set the minimum speed, as well as the acceleration and deceleration, and the input type. Over here we have a joystick rotator. Now this I'm not actually sure how this works. It's quite weird, and there's no tutorial for it, so I'm actually quite lost on how it works. But I hooked it up to a left analog stick, which works like a joystick, and what happens is when I move it to the left, it goes left. When I move it to the right, it goes right. I've tried to move it up or down. Up or down won't do anything, but the up or down input isn't hooked up to anything. So essentially, it will rotate things in the direction that you point the left analog stick. That's essentially how it works. It rotates items. Sort of rotates items like you would control your spaceship in asteroids or something. It just rotates things with in the direction that you're pointing the analog stick. Now over here we have the new sensors. Now this is an impact sensor. Now what I've got it hooked up to do, this is a standard Sackboy sensor, player sensor. It's hooked up to this destroyer, and I'll cover destroyers in a later episode, or later part of this walkthrough, but essentially they destroy material. And it's hooked up to this light matter material here, which this cardboard is sitting on. Once I stand under this block of light matter, this light matter will be destroyed. This cardboard will fall as it's affected by gravity, and it will hit this light matter here. Now because this impact sensor is hooked up to this light matter, once the cardboard hits the light matter, or once it makes impact with the light matter, it's hooked up to this light, which will turn on. And you can set certain options, like if it includes rigid connections. So if you set this to include rigid connections, anything that is glued to this light matter will also be affected by the impact sensor. If the impact sensor touches anything that is glued to that light matter or stuck to it, the impact sensor will also activate. Include touching, that includes things that are behind or in front of the item in question as far as layers go. And if it requires a tag to be activated or not on the item that is impacting or that is hitting the item in question. You can also invert the output, so if it's not on, if nothing has impacted it, then the light will turn on, but in this case we'll just leave it normal. And you can also change the color of the cable and the impact sensor itself. If you like, we'll just set it to the default green. Now, once I step under this, the light will turn on. As you see there, as soon as it hits the light matter, the light turns on. Now that score sensor we'll get to later. This is, over here, this is a projectile sensor. Now, here we have a create nator, and I'll take you through this just a little bit first. I'll cover it in a later part. But the create nator, as well as other emitters, can spawn projectiles. Projectiles are here, as you can see. The main projectiles are electricity, fire, plasma, and water. Missiles, crazy missiles, and the plasma ball from LittleBigPlanet 1 are also classed as projectiles, but these four are the main ones. A projectile sensor, in effect, senses these projectiles when they hit the material they're attached to. The target count is how many times you have to hit the item in question with the projectile for it to activate. The current count is how much it's set to when you start the level. Reset when full. If it reaches that number, will it go back to 0 when it's full? Yes, no. Include rigid connections. That's sort of like before. If something's glued to that item in question that the projectile sensor is attached to, if you shoot a projectile at it, it will also affect the projectile counter or projectile sensor if that is turned on. You can also set the type of projectiles that are detected. You can set to fire, electricity, plasma, water, or all. You can't set it to only not include some. You either have to set it to all or only one of them at this point in time. Output, you can invert the output, yes, no, make it do that. You can set the length of it. You can set how big, how physically large the actual counter is. That's irrespective of how much that is. You can set it to really big, really small. You can make it go off the material, as you can see there. The default is 2, and you can set to whether the electronics and cables are visible in play mode, as well as the color of the switch itself. Now I'm just going to show you how it works. Now at the moment I've got water set to it. Well, water fires heaps at once. Heaps of projectiles at once. But I'll make it so that this fires only one at a time. So we'll set it to maximum at once 1. Rate of fire 1 second. And shoot water at it 5 times. And that turns the light on. Now, as you can't collect points bubbles in the create mode for LittleBigPlanet 2, I've had to come to play mode to show you how the score sensor works. Now, the score sensor is that little green one right there, and the red one, the little red sensor, is just a player sensor, and the emitter will emit bubbles. Now, I set that to once I get a score of I think it's about 500 or 1,000 or something like that, the light will turn on. So eventually, once it gets to 100, that light turns on. Now the options for it are as follows. You can set it to how many points you need to activate it, and you can also set it to invert the output, yes, no, and if the cables and the switch are visible in play mode.